I'm a practical guy. I ran these big companies with lots of people. How do you expect me, when I'm hiring 400,000 people, to differentiate between someone who's very smart and learned on their own versus someone who went to an accredited school? I've got a piece of paper. So for some period of time, and it may only be the next 20 or 30 years, but his kids will fit into that window, that degree is, for practical purposes, an important form of differentiation to compete with others for that same job that you may want down the road. That's why I'm saying, don't fool yourself. Yes, you can get all kinds of education outside of the formal system, but for a period of time, until technology really does replace accreditation standards and we've got a way to measure people's intelligence and experience electronically, till that happens, that's not going to happen in 20 or 30 years, that'll be down the road. That college degree is pretty important to your ability to compete in the real world out there. Very practical, but not a popular point of view.
Is it that narrative that's driven the percentage of children to attend college?
It is, and I blame some of this populist movement because it's how do you argue? If I was sitting here with Mike Rowe, the very popular guy, he'd be saying, Jim, you're crazy. Don't tell him to go to school. Just tell him to go get a trade. It's a far better thing, and we need workers. And this is what people told me. They told me, Jim, don't waste your time. Degrees, you don't need a degree. I would not have had the freedom I have. I would not have had the unlimited opportunity. Could I have still pursued a trade? Yes. Nothing wrong with that, especially if I had a passion for woodworking, or I'm a pilot. I could have easily gone and become a pilot professionally. But my advice to that young person that wants to pursue that career, even though I love flying, go be a pilot. You don't need a degree. But get a degree in addition. Because 20 years from now, you might find yourself in a world where autonomous aircraft make you lose your job. Then what are you going to do? And they can pivot with a degree.
And it's challenging when the wealthiest man in the world, Elon Musk, says he doesn't care if you have a college degree to come work for one of his businesses. How do you combat that?
Well, exactly. You've got this is part of the narrative, because to me that's like Michael Jordan saying, just go play basketball. You'll be fine. You're tall. You'll be okay. And 0.1% will succeed. Peter Thiel, same thing. He put a bounty out there. He said, don't go to college. I'll give you $100,000 to go get a trade or go be a programmer. And to me, that is such a disservice, because let's face it, a kid will take any excuse not to have to do the work, right? And I think in the world of AI and in the information age where we're heading, breadth of human learning is going to be far more important than depth. And that's where a college degree really helps. No one's going to sit around and study humanities on their own.
Well, to that point about Elon Musk or Peter Thiel looking for that 0.01%, I would say it's probably less than that. It's on one hand, yes, you could be anything you want. You have unlimited opportunity. Go do those things. But there's also a severe difference of people and capabilities. Like General Williams, that dude is so damn smart. And his ability just to function on the battlefield, in the boardroom, all those things, that ain't me. I have capabilities. I think I'm fairly good, personable, but like when it comes to like academia, good luck. 2 + 2 is, hold on, ChatGPT, it's 4. Whereas most people just, they're so smart. And I'm not trying to discount or be self-deprecating, but there's a difference when it comes to human intellect of people. So like when Elon Musk or Peter Thiel are saying, hey, we want you, it's like, yeah, they're talking to that one in what, a million, a billion, 100 quadrillion, I don't know.
Right.
So for the 99% I think that's who the lesson really needs to hold on to. And if you think Elon Musk is talking to you, he's probably not.
But he thinks he is. That's the scary part, because he's very bold about saying, it's not as important anymore. I really have a very different perspective, because again, I see this as a national security issue. Because if you think about our population, and when the Chinese government learned from us the power of education and doubled down and is committed to everybody in that society is going to be educated. And we're sitting there going, yeah, it's not important anymore, you know. That's scary when you dial forward because we're not going to be competitive, our businesses, our vulnerability to things like crime, disease. There's statistics that are mind-boggling for the kids that go to college versus not. Life expectancy is literally 8 years higher.
Well, for 20 years we've been hearing national security about, you know, health and weight, and we're overweight.
Right.
I've never heard national security tied to, you know, education.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's huge, and that does play into the narrative of, hey, we're getting dumber and we're getting fatter.
Well, take it to the extreme, and you look at terrorism, and I'm fascinated by this, the psychology around how does someone convince a kid to strap a vest on and blow themselves up, and I have a hard time believing this is just ideology, right, and brainwashing, but it's a function of the absence of education and opportunity. And it makes you wonder if we continue on the path that we are. I am not an expert on defense, but every time we blow up a neighborhood, I mean, we're creating. Except if I'm 10 years old and I see my whole family wiped out, I'm going to be pretty mad for the rest of my life and willing to do anything to fight back. Could we educate those kids instead and find a way to break that cycle?
You don't even have to go as extreme as terrorism. Just like the inability to have critical thinking in the modern politics of like, oh, you voted this way, I hate you. It's like, well, time out. Let's really dig into why you feel that way, and is that information true or false? But again, it's that critical thinking component of it.
Exactly.
And I think you're absolutely right, because there's a ton of times you disagree with people, but I don't hate them.
Right.
You know, but I think that's because if we got in a debate, I at least have a good faith mentality of you can change my mind. Whereas most people, they go into it where they're never going to change their mind. So when it comes to business though, just to pivot into, because I mean, we could spend 10 hours talking about trying to solve the human condition in politics, being able to have that critical thinking, how does that play into the role of business?
Well, can I first?
Absolutely.
I don't want to lose that thought, because going all the way back, I was shocked myself when I did research for the book, that going back to our founding fathers, Jefferson himself, Alexis de Tocqueville, coming from France, studying our democratic process, all of them said that education was fundamental to the success of a working democracy. And on the cover of my book, I referenced that. I said, literally, education across the world is at risk. I talked about this polarization of today's society, and the foundational right of freedom of speech is now being challenged, not from one side, from both sides. Mm-hmm. And what's causing that is this, I said, truth is under siege, is misinformation and hostility replaced critical thinking, to your point, and civil discourse. This is caused by fear. There's a pervasive sense of fear in society, not just here in the United States. It's a plague around the world, where people are being led to believe that someone's going to take something from them, do something to them. And the analogy I provide is, when you're a kid and you're scared, it's at night, you think there's a monster in your room. Your mom comes in, turns on the light, and you go, oh, that's silly. I had nothing to be afraid of. That's knowledge. That's critical thinking, the ability to have understanding. And that's why, literally, the subtitle of my book, The Future is in Your Hands, each one of us not only has the ability, but we have the responsibility, if we want to be in a civil society, to use our human instinct and fight that perception that's out there that's causing fear and anger and ultimately violence. We can fight it with knowledge.